Welcome back to Tongue of the Serpent. By now, this season has shown us haunted objects, dangerous thresholds, and places where the city stops behaving like a map and starts behaving like appetite. Tonight's story turns towards something older and less easily exorcised. A house that does not merely hold memory, but learns from attention. Dr. Adrian Cross has made a career out of explaining hauntings away. Drafts, creaks, suggestible minds, ordinary causes dressed in dramatic clothing. Then he runs a house on Royal Street that has been waiting very patiently for someone like him to arrive with cameras, notebooks, and the absolute conviction that observation is power. In New Orleans, that kind of confidence is often the first offering. This is the house that watches. People worried about ghosts. That was understandable. Ghosts make for a tidy human fear. You could tell a story about unfinished business and mournful footsteps, and the reassuring idea that love was stubborn enough to survive death. Whereas I worried about real estate with opinions. New Orleans houses are not neutral. Some are only architecture, wood and brick arranged into shelter, doing their work with the quiet reliability of a well-trained servant. You can live in them, leave them, and they do not take it personally. Others behave like animals. They settle into a street the way cats settle into sunbeams. They make small sounds when they think you aren't listening. They remember where you walk most often. They learn your habits. They watch. Most hauntings are about the dead lingering, but this story is about something that was never dead at all. On Royal Street, there was a house people spoke about carefully, as if the address itself might overhear. They called it the house that watches, which was not an imaginative name, but it was an accurate one. New Orleans often preferred accuracy in its warnings. It was only with everything else that the city became poetic. Dr. Adrian Cross arrived there believing he would be the exception. He was not. For 15 years, Adrian had pursued hauntings the way some men pursued rare birds, with patience, expensive equipment, and an unshakable belief that he was the smartest creature in the room. He had chased cold spots through abandoned hospitals, recorded flickering lights in decaying estates, and listened to doors click shut in empty hotel corridors where sorrow clung to the walls like peeling wallpaper. He documented everything and explained it relentlessly. To Adrian, haunted was another word for misinterpreted. A draft, a creak, a human mind filling gaps because gaps were uncomfortable. Which was precisely why the house on Royal Street appealed to him. It was 3 stories of time-stained brick, with wrought iron balconies curling outward like dark lace, and shuttered windows that looked, from the right angle, like lidded eyes pretending to sleep. Once it had belonged to someone important, though the name had faded the way names do when they are no longer fed. What remained were rumors, hallways that twisted when no one watched, mirrors that misbehaved, furniture that drifted inches in the night, books that stacked themselves into words, footsteps in rooms left empty. In New Orleans, even sensible people avoid saying too much about certain addresses. They may point vaguely. They may mutter, "that place," the way one might refer to an ex or an aggressive dog, but specifics feel like invitations. He made arrangements with the owners and arrived precisely when he said he would. He approached the front door with a notebook in hand, already hearing the cadence of his future chapter in his head. He slid the key into the lock, but it refused to turn. He frowned, tried again, wiggled it slightly. Still nothing. Then the front door opened on its own, slow and deliberate, as if the house had been expecting him. Adrian's irritation sharpened into interest. He stepped inside. Behind him, the door shut with careful finality. The question was, why? The house was furnished. That was the first detail Adrian disliked, because it did not fit neatly into his preferred explanations. Most abandoned houses were empty or ruined, or at least honest about their neglect. This one looked prepared. The parlor held deep mahogany chairs with worn velvet cushions. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with leather-bound volumes that smelled of dust and old decisions. A chandelier hung from the ceiling like a frozen bouquet. In the upstairs bedroom, a four-poster bed waited with its curtains drawn back politely, as though refusing to be dramatic about the obvious threat of sleep. Adrian walked through every room slowly, taking notes. No visible signs of squatters, no fresh wrappers, no modern debris, no clothing or belongings scattered carelessly. Everything looked staged. He had been told in passing that a man named Lucien had supplied the furnishings. Adrian filed that away as a possible lead, a caretaker perhaps, or a property manager with a taste for theater. He did not yet know how often Lucien's name followed the unnatural, the way scent followed smoke. Still, the house unsettled him in small ways. The air felt attentive, as if listening required density. Even the silence felt curated, as if it had arranged itself around him like furniture. Then the grandfather clock in the hallway insisted on striking 13. Adrian stood at the base of the stairs as the last chime rang out, slow and smug. He checked his watch. 11:42. He scowled at the clock as if it were a colleague who had made a mistake in public. "Clever," he murmured. The house did not reply. That night he slept anyway, because Adrian Cross was stubborn, and fatigue is an excellent accomplice to denial. In the morning he woke with the unpleasant sense that the room's geometry had changed. The light and temperature seemed ordinary, but the arrangement felt wrong. He sat up and stared at the dresser, the chair, the nightstand. Then he got out of bed, fetched the tape measure from his bag, and checked. Every piece of furniture had moved exactly 2 inches to the left. It was not roughly 2 inches, not vaguely 2 inches, exactly 2 inches, as if done by someone with a ruler and a grudge. Adrian marked the floor with small strips of tape. He drew diagrams in his notebook. He said "clever" again, but now it sounded less like praise and more like bargaining. If the house wanted to be studied, he would study it properly. He turned the place into an office, cameras in every room, mounted high where they could watch without blinking, chalk lines at the edges of rugs and chairs, measurements on door frames, timestamps written in a hand so neat it seemed typeset. He narrated his process under his breath as he worked, as though the sound of his own logic could keep fear from taking root. Baseline conditions, he muttered, controlled variables, continuous recording. The house listened as if intrigued, almost flattered. It made no overt signs of noticing. It simply waited until he looked away. On the first afternoon, Adrian filmed the east-facing window. He stood directly before it, camera running, waiting for the impossible garden locals had mentioned. Nothing happened. Just glass, just the same brick alley wall and dim reflection of his own concentrated face. He turned to adjust a camera angle, looked back. The window opened onto a small courtyard garden thick with jasmine and old stone. Adrian swore softly and leaned closer. The garden remained. He stared, closed his eyes, opened them. The house held still, polite as architecture. He turned to write it down. When he looked back, the window showed only the alley again. The staircase did the same trick. Count ahead, and the number of steps stayed obedient. Climb without counting, and the staircase acquired one more step halfway up, as if the house wanted to see whether he would notice the added distance. The grandfather clock struck 13 again at an hour that did not deserve it. Adrian glared at it, wrote it down, and kept filming. That night, he reviewed the footage. The furniture and objects were definitely moving, but never with smooth, visible motion. They shifted between frames, as if the house stepped sideways in time, rearranging itself in the instant the camera blinked. Adrian sat very still in the parlor chair and listened to the clock tick. For the first time, he began to suspect the house was not performing for his equipment. It was performing for him. By the fifth night, the house began speaking to him. It did not speak with shrieks or dramatic wails, but with refined manners. It used the sounds it had already possessed: settling walls, shutters whispering in a draught, pipes sighing in the distance. At first, Adrian dismissed it. Buildings made noise. Then the noise gained shape. A breath in the hallway became a word. "Welcome!" Adrian looked up from his notebook. The chandelier above him flickered once, as if pleased with itself. He waited, penciling hovering. Another whisper, closer. "Stay!" Adrian set the pencil down with exaggerated calm and addressed the empty room the way one might address a difficult colleague during a meeting. "I do need to leave. I will not be staying." The chandelier flickered again, amused. Adrian stood and walked across the parlor. He reached the front door, closed his hand around the brass knob, pulled, stepped through, and found himself back in the parlor beside the bookshelf. He blinked hard. His heart kicked once, violently. He turned and walked to the door again, faster, refusing to think too hard about how he had returned without moving. The hallway stretched before him like a sentence, determined to add clause after clause until the meaning drowned. Doorways receded into the dark, teeth in a mouth preparing to close. Adrian ran. He reached the front door, slammed both hands against it, and shoved. It remained stubbornly closed. He pressed his forehead against the wood. "All right," he muttered. "This is how we're playing this." The house did not lock him in with bolts. It simply edited the idea of leaving, changing the story so the ending could not occur. Adrian turned sharply, preparing to pace and plan and fight the narrative with documentation, and stopped. Someone was humming in the parlor, a soft, casual tune, as though whoever hummed had every reason in the world to be comfortable in this trap. Adrian returned to the parlor with the careful steps of a man approaching an animal he does not wish to startle. The room was arranged differently again. It was not precisely 2 inches this time, but by intent. A chair now angled toward the fireplace as if set for conversation. A glass sat on the side table that had not been there earlier, filled with something dark that caught candlelight like wine, tea, or old blood, depending on how the eye wanted to interpret it. And beside the fireplace stood a woman. She wore a black dress that fell in clean lines, elegant without trying. Her blonde hair was coiled neatly at the nape of her neck. Her face was calm, her expression privately amused, like someone watching a play she had seen before and still enjoyed the timing. She traced the spines of books Adrian was certain had not been on the shelf yesterday. He cleared his throat. "I take it you're not a ghost." She looked over her shoulder and smiled, the sort of smile that had no business belonging entirely to either the living or the dead. "No," she said, "but I do admire the company they keep." "And you are?" She tilted her head, considering what version of the truth he could manage. "You may call me Evelyn." Something in the walls shifted, a settling creak, as if the house recognized the name. Evelyn turned fully toward him, eyes too knowing and too steady. "It likes you," she said. "That's not comforting." "It rarely is." They sat because the house allowed it. That was the simplest way to describe the shift. Adrian did not decide to sit. He found himself in the chair angled toward the fire, posture stiff, knees slightly apart, like a man preparing for an interview he never scheduled. Evelyn sat opposite with the relaxed grace of someone who had never been trapped in a building against her will. She picked up the glass on the side table and took a slow sip. Adrian narrowed his eyes. "You didn't bring that in." Evelyn glanced at the glass as if only now noticing it. "No," she said. "It did." Adrian looked around. The furniture had settled into a conversational arrangement. A second glass waited near his elbow, empty but expectant. The house was providing props. "Some houses remember people," Evelyn said, as if explaining weather. "They keep impressions, footsteps, voices, the shape of grief in a hallway." "And some houses collect them." Her smile flickered. "Yes." "Is it haunted?" Her gaze held his. "No, it's occupied. It watches because watching is how it learns you," she continued. "Your habits, your fears, the places you hesitate.
I've been studying it.
And feeding it, Evelyn said. His face tightened. Attention is nourishment, she said. Documentation is devotion. Adrian looked down at his own notebook on the table, the neat lines and timestamps suddenly feeling less like science and more like prayer. You came to prove it isn't real, Evelyn said, and you brought it the only thing it truly craves, a witness who won't look away. Silence settled. Then she added, almost conversationally, I once knew another house like this. Adrian looked up. Her expression shifted, matter-of-fact and utterly without ornament. It burned, she said. Above them, something creaked. A slow, heavy sound, like a memory shifting in the dark. If you want to leave, Evelyn said, you have to stop trying to understand it like a problem. Morning arrived reluctantly, pale light seeping through shutters like it had been negotiated down. Adrian did not remember falling asleep. He only remembered sitting, then blinking, then discovering that hours had passed and the house still felt awake. A knock sounded, one polite knock. Then the front door opened without argument, and footsteps approached with unhurried certainty. Lucien Devereux stepped into the parlor as though he had been invited for tea. Immaculate suit, ginger hair, neat as a promise, beard perfectly civilized. He carried himself with the calm of a man who had never had to rush because time generally made room for him. He gave the smallest nod toward the room, not acknowledging Adrian, but the house itself, the kind of nod one offers a temperamental aristocrat, respectful, minimal, carefully not submissive. Adrian stood so quickly, his chair scraped. You furnished it. Lucien looked at him with mild interest.
Indeed.
Why? Lucien's smile was faint. Because it was empty. It should not have been an answer, but it was infuriatingly perfect. Adrian turned sharply toward Evelyn, but she was already moving toward the hallway with Lucien. They spoke too softly for Adrian to hear, but the house could. The walls seemed to lean closer, as if stretching to listen. A moment later, Lucien returned, alone.
I believe it's time for you to leave, he said.
I've been trying.
Try harder.
The door won't.
It will, Lucien informed him gently, with the correct payment.
Adrian stared blankly. Lucien's gaze flicked to the notebook on the table. The house hushed, listening eagerly.
Give it something it can keep that isn't you, he said.
Adrian looked down at the notebook. Measurements, observations, evidence, even the outline of the chapter he had already begun composing in his head. Leaving it behind felt wrong, which was exactly why it would work. Slowly, he slid the notebook across the velvet toward Lucien. Lucien did not touch it. He merely nodded.
That will do.
Adrian walked to the front door, expecting resistance. A hallway stretched into nonsense, a parlor reappearing where no parlor should be. Instead, the house behaved. The hallway was the correct length. The floorboards remained still beneath his feet. At the door he hesitated. He was leaving not just the notebook, but his cameras, equipment, luggage, his entire apparatus of explanation. It felt less like abandoning possessions then allowing the house to keep a first polite claim on him. Lucian stood behind him, hands folded. Evelyn lingered in the parlor doorway with that calm amusement that never quite became comfort. At last, Adrian reached for the knob. This time, it turned easily. The door opened with a smooth, almost gracious swing, as if releasing him were a gift. He stepped outside. Sunlight hit him like an insult, too bright and too ordinary. The street was exactly what it should be. Vendors setting up, cars rolling past, tourists blinking at maps that would never truly help them. The quarter hummed with its usual noise. Adrian turned back. The house stood silent, shutters half closed. At the second-floor window, for a single moment, he saw something, a shape, a shadow, the suggestion of an eye pressed close to the glass, watching. Then it was gone. Adrian turned away and kept walking until he could no longer feel its attention on the back of his neck. He replaced his equipment later. Of course, he wrote about the house, but he left certain things out. Some houses do not like to be remembered. You've been listening to Tongue of the Serpent. That was the house that watches. A story about attention, appetite, and the mistake of assuming observation is a form of control. In New Orleans, not every haunted place wants to frighten you away. Some want you to stay. Keep looking and feed them the slow, careful devotion of being believed. Until next time, mistrust polite architecture. Don't stare too long at a house that seems interested in you. And remember, some addresses are not trying to be solved. They are trying to be fed.